Here with a good friend of mine, Scott Shepard. He's a pastor of a great church in Athens, Georgia called Cornerstone Church. And I just want to ask him a question for you guys, something that I know fits into the narrative, what it means to be in ministry. So, Scott, you've been at Cornerstone like 19 years.
Yeah, almost 19.
So you know what it's like to have some ups and downs. I want to talk a little bit about how to get through crisis in the local church when it's in your own circle.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just say thanks, Jerry, and how excited I am about what God's done at Daystar. Just such an amazing story. But crisis can often be good for us because one of the measurements of health is how well we deal with crisis.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've learned is, as a pastor, as a man, as a father, every area of my life, the most important thing that I learned to do is hear God's voice.
Yeah.
If I can hear God's voice and trust in my ability to know I've heard from God, it gives me confidence in going out to do whatever it is that I have to do that day. And when I face crisis, we've been very fortunate and hadn't had many hiccups, but man, we've had a few. And the ones we have had been pretty serious. And I'm grateful that in those moments that I didn't know what to do. I knew what my flesh wanted to do,
right.
But I needed to follow the Spirit and what God wanted me to do. And Jerry, I think learning to hear God's voice and trust God's voice in that moment so that my anger, my frustration, my fear doesn't lead to false judgment. And I think whenever I can trust God's voice, it leads me to a spirit of mercy. And when I have mercy that trumps my judgment, it protects me from a judgment that leads to my anger. And as people who do what we're called to do, we've got to manage conflict and crisis differently than the world manages it. And I think that one of the greatest things that we can do to give us confidence is to know that we've heard God's voice. Trusting and acting on what we know God has said enables us to lead with mercy instead of judgment.
You said a couple things that sparked my thoughts. You talked about fear a little bit in there. And as pastors, we don't want to admit there's any fear there because our heroes are guys like Peter, Apostle Paul, But talk about how the fear subsides. We know that anger often comes out of fear. I'm afraid something's going to go wrong. It makes me angry. Yeah. All right. But talk about how the fear kind of goes away when you get in a place where you can hear God's voice. Because I find that's true in my life. Like if I'm afraid things are going to go down, but I'm close to God, man, it feels like, okay, He's got me, And if I neglect that, the fear and the anger and the frustration comes back.
Yeah. Well, when Peter failed, he failed because of fear. He was afraid of what the world was going to do to him, so he made a decision out of fear. Fear is a part of our flesh. Right. We're born with natural fears, but we learn most of those fears. Yeah. I think they say 3 fears that we're born with: the fear of loud noises, the fear of falling, and all the other fears that we take on in our life are fears that we've learned. And if we can learn to fear, we can also learn not to fear. Yeah. And the way that I believe we learn not to fear is by gaining confidence in the things that we do fear, and that is making bad decisions. It's acting in ways that don't reflect the heart of God or even our true heart. And the more confident we are in knowing we've heard God's voice, man, it gives us a great ability to know that we can act in faith instead of fear of what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. Yeah, and pastors, I hope this just adds a little value to your day today. If you're going through some conflict, just know, that's a sign of health, that you're getting through and you're working through some stuff. And listen, I'd love to connect with you more through 24 to Double. If you'd like to know what that is, just go to 24trial.com. It's a 24-month process where we teach you systems for church health and church growth. 24trial.com. I hope to see you there soon.